Welcome to every one of you out there. We appreciate all you studiers. We're in the book of Job still, and we're in chapter 31. Job is still speaking, and we've been going over the fact that Job is not comparing himself to God. He's not trying to put his self as a perfect individual. These scriptures that his three friends are bringing up and their statements that he's making do not apply to him. They make accusations about him not feeding the poor and clothing the naked and all these are just made up accusations that they're I guess they made them up in their own mind. We all got to be aware of that we don't start implying thoughts for other people. You can take things the wrong way. You can just take for granted that someone feels one way or the other. And, I'm guilty of that. You think someone's angry at you and they're not really angry, etc. You're not in someone else's shoes. So that's the beauty of plain speaking and not hinting around where people try to take whatever you say and you throw a hint out there and they take it wrong, or you send a text or a letter instead of talking plainly to someone. The plain speaking way is the best way so that things aren't misinterpreted. I don't know where they got these accusations about Job, or whether they just made them up, or maybe that's just a general statement that they think that sinners do, and so it must apply to Job, but it just does not here, and we're going to see that here. And by the time the Lord speaks at the end here, we're going to see that what the Lord thinks, because that's really what counts. All right, so that being said, Job is going to keep speaking here. He's still sticking that he has integrity and in his duties as a believer. Okay, and here he's talking about looking on and lusting after a maid in verse 1 in chapter 31. It says, I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? And he's talking about not lusting after the beauty of a maid. 2, it says, for what portion of God is there from above? ? And what inheritance of the Almighty from on high? Yeah, what are you going to get from the judgment of God here? That's what he's saying. And 3, is not destruction to the wicked? ? And a strange punishment to the workers of iniquity? ? And of course that's all through the Bible. Doth not he see my ways and count all my steps? Okay, so he's not comparing himself to the Lord. He's not saying I'm holier than thou. This is a quest that we're all on. This is all through Psalms. David said the same type of things here. All right, so this last thing here about seeing his ways and counting his steps, they're sending us to 2 Chronicles 16:9 and Job 32:21 to Proverbs 5:21 and 15:3. And this is not some arrogant person. This is a quest that we're all on and that we all should do. And we should all realize 4 here. Okay, if I have walked with vanity, or if my foot hath hasted to deceit. 6, it says, let me be weighed in an even balance, that God may know mine integrity. Okay, so that's not some arrogant statement. He's saying, let God be the judge here. And believe me, when it comes to deception, unless you're one of these insane jabbers that have the all the metals going to their frontal lobe and they've really lost their mind, they're really open to all the evil and the fallen angels, etc. Most people know if they're trying to plant a deception or with the vanity of idols. You should know that. If your conscience is still working. All right, and 7, if my step hath turned out of the way, and mine heart walked after mine eyes, and if any blot hath cleaved to my hands, 8, then let me sow, and let another eat. Yea, let my offspring be rooted out. Okay? So what's he saying there? If I've done these big major sins against God, then let me get my judgment. 9, it says, if mine heart have been deceived by a woman, or if I have laid wait at my neighbor's door, then let my wife grind unto another, and let others bow down upon her. So, in other words, if I've done these kind of things, then I'll reap what I've sown here. And this would be a terrible thing when your spouse has committed adultery. And what a terrible thing to happen. No wonder the Lord hates adultery so much. In 11, he's going to talk about that. For this is an heinous crime. Yea, it is an iniquity to be punished by the judges. For it is a fire that consumeth to destruction, and would root out all mine increase. So there he's talking about if I deserve the punishment, let it be so. And look at how very, very, very serious this is, this punishment. 13. If I did despise the cause of my man servant, or of my maid servant, when they contended with me, what then shall I do when God riseth up? And when he visiteth, what shall I answer him? Question mark. So you see, he's not saying that it couldn't happen to me and I'm so perfect and I'm equal with God and all those other accusations they continue to make against him. Nope. He's saying if I've done it, then let me get my punishment. 15. Did not he that made me in the womb make him? Question mark. And did not one fashion us in the womb? Question mark. Okay, and that's God that does that. That's serious knowledge that he has here. Okay, all biblical, all within the doctrine. 16. If I have withheld the poor from their desire, or have caused the eyes of the widow to fail, or have eaten my morsel myself alone, and the fatherless hath not eaten thereof. 18. For from my youth he was brought up with me as with a father, and I have guided her from my mother's womb. If I have seen any perish for want of clothing, or any poor without covering. if his loins have not been blessed me, and if he were not warmed, as in being warmed, with the fleece of my sheep, if I have lift up my hand against the fatherless, when I saw my help in the gate, then let mine arm fall from my shoulder blade, and my arm be broken from the bone. Now, folks, just because he's saying this, he's not saying because these are the things that you ought to do. So that's what Paul said. If you've done all these good things that we're talking about here, and you study and you learn, don't be arrogant about it, because this is your duty to do these things. That don't mean you're saying I'm equal with God, or that I'm flawless. It isn't what he's saying here. He's saying I will take my punishment, and he's also given us a good list of things that God think are very important when it comes to obeying his commandments. So we're getting that explained here, and he's explaining it to these listeners here, all the three friends and the young man. All right, and in 23, for destruction from God was a terror to me, and by reason of his highness I could not endure. So what? He fears the Lord, and that's the beginning of knowledge, and we all have to fear the Lord. If you don't fear the Lord, you are what? Biblically suppressed. You're stupid. 24, if I have made gold my hope, or have said to the fine gold, thou art my confidence, if I rejoiced because my wealth was great, and because mine hand had gotten much. 26, if I beheld the sun, capital S, when it shined, or the moon walking in brightness, and my heart hath been secretly enticed, or my mouth hath kissed my hand, this also were an iniquity to be punished by the judge, where I should have denied the God that is above. Okay, notice the sun and the moon, and not being enticed by those paganistic view of the heavenlies, where the sun is Baal or Bel, and the female is the Isis. Okay, and they worship those symbolically over the worship of the heavenlies and the devils that are the spirit, the unfallen spirits. Those aren't what we're talking about. We're talking about fallen angel demons, etc., and how the worship of the sun and the moon will entice the ungodly here. That's what we're talking about. All right, in 29, if I rejoiced at the destruction of him that hated me, or lift up myself when evil found him, neither have I suffered my mouth to sin by wishing a curse to his soul. If the men of my tabernacle said not, oh, that we had of his flesh, we cannot be satisfied. See, he's going into some real details of what sin is, okay? Not as a declaration of him being perfect, especially when earlier on he admitted that his lust of his youth, they were bringing up, okay? But what this shows you is that he's very aware of sin. You know, a lot of people sin today and they don't even know what sin is. Okay, they don't even know. because their conscience hasn't been trained through the doctrine, or it's been seared. It's been destroyed by the world. Okay, but you see here how Job has this real biblical view of exactly what the commandments of the Lord are and what things do anger him. Okay, and how we really, it's a very narrow door here. And a lot of things that people would think are fair in the world, like hating your enemies. It's not that if you hate someone that's doing you wrong, that's some unforgivable sin. No. But if we got the Holy Ghost, then we love, 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 the real love, the chario, the charity, the agape. 32, the stranger did not lodge in the street, but I opened my doors to the traveler. Boy, times have changed since then, haven't they? 33, if I covered my transgressions as Adam by hiding mine iniquity in my bosom. Now he's showing you this knowledge he has of the written word here. Did I fear a great multitude? Or did the contempt of families terrify me, that I kept silence and went not out of the doors? There is the ungodly fear he's talking about. Boy, this is loaded with knowledge, folks. It just is. 35, oh, that one would hear me. Behold, my desire is that the Almighty would answer me, and that mine adversary had written a book. Okay? Now, he's going to hear you there, Job, isn't he? And we are going to get all this written in the book, ain't we? See how prophetic that is? Yes, sir, I'm telling you. 36, surely I would take it upon my shoulder and bind it as a crown to me. I would declare unto him the number of my steps, as a prince would I go near unto him. Okay, and we're going to see that that ain't exactly true here. Not in this case, not here with the whirlwind. Now, when he's there in the New Jerusalem, which he will be, that may be true. He may be right there next to God Almighty. But that ain't here. And anyway, his tune's going to change here. I'm giving you a little insight. When the whirlwind comes down, he's going to back up a little bit on that one. However, that doesn't disannul all his other things here that are totally biblical, and they are exactly what's in the scriptures. 38, if my land cry against me, or that the furrows likewise thereof complain. 39, if I have eaten the fruits thereof without money, or have caused the owners thereof to lose their life. In 40, last verse, it says, let thistles grow instead of wheat, and cockle instead of barley. The words of Job are ended. And they went out really strong, really biblical, folks. It shows you how much knowledge he has, why his reputation was so good with God and man. And we're going to find out as the balances of God are here. And what does God end up saying about Job? Is he going to be accepted or not? Is he going to be punished? Or is he going to get everything given back to him double? We're going to find out here, aren't we? As we cruise on here in Job. So, as we get into 32, we have Elihu. the young man, he speaks up, and he has some knowledge, and he also has some bad judgment. So we'll get with this fourth speaker here, there in chapter 32. Bye bye.